For example, BNG is 0. Why? Because this is not the current record and Delhi is the current one. So this is an example where we are using type 1 SCD. And what is your scenario, what is your situation you're going through, and what all I can guide you in achieving a good salary. And so now when he's moving to Bhubaneswar, I'll come here, change it to BBS 010123. Hello techies, welcome back to the channel. My name is Krishna and I am a big data tester. So today's video we are going to talk about what is slowly changing dimension, or also called as what is SCD. So I will make this topic very clear with example, real-time example, so that it goes into your mind. I'll speak in English mostly in the video, but I'll try to explain when I'm giving the example. I'll try to explain that in Hindi so that all the audience, those who are watching in Hindi and English, they are able to understand. Well, so let's get started with the video. So before I start the video and before I start sharing my screen and start presenting, before I start that, let me tell you that if you want to talk to me, or if you want to have a one-on-one conversation with me and share your experience or talk about your life or your journey, or need any kind of guidance in testing, you can please book a slot for one-on-one. You can go to the about section of this channel and there I have a link of one-on-one. Even in this video, in the description box, I'll give you the link where you can go and book a slot for one-on-one. I will give around 45 minutes and talk to you and understand what is your scenario, what is your situation you're going through, and what all I can guide you in achieving a good salary and transforming yourself or transitioning from support to IT or from non-tech to IT. So you can book your slot. We can have a one-on-one conversation. Let's go to the screen and see what is slowly changing dimension. Slowly changing dimension, also called as SCD, is a dimension that stores and manages both current and historical data over time in a data warehouse. I know most of you didn't understand, but I will try to explain. So basically here what we are trying to do, we are trying to solve two problems where mostly in data warehouse, when the data is stored, the thumb rule is you don't change the data in data warehouse, okay? But some of the data which is coming from OLTP system and getting loaded into the OLAP system, which is the data warehouse, some of the data will change. We cannot say that we cannot change any data in data warehouse. I know that is the thumb rule, but now we are coming up with some exceptions where we can change the data. Okay, so in this scenario, we want the current data and the historical data. So basically, there is some change which is happening. So we want the current data, which is currently now, and the historical data which is changed. So that way, we want to store both the data in the data warehouse. So to solve this, we have come up with a concept called as slowly changing dimension. So slowly changing dimension is a common problem in any particular data warehouse. This applies to basically where the attribute or where the value is changing with time. As the time passes, the value is changing. We may not consider those values which are changing very fast. We are considering those values which are taking some time to change. So this is an exception where we are handling the data which is changing slowly in the period of maybe 1 year, 2 years, or 3 years. In maybe few years of time, that data is changing. So that we are considering as slowly changing dimension, because the data stored in data warehouse is for a longer version, like 10 years data, 15 years data, 20 years data, and we are trying to transform the data in the required format where it is useful for the business to take decision over that data. So now data is getting used to increase their business, improve the business, and improve the strategy in their business so as to progress in their business. So to solve this problem of slowly changing dimension, we have three types, which is type 1, 2 and 3. So these three types are enough. There are multiple other types. If you Google, there are multiple types, 9, 10 types of slowly changing dimension, but you don't have to understand all those. These three are enough. If you learn these three, you can crack any interview. This is basically, I would say, more than 70 to 80% of the time, this question will be asked for sure in any interview: what is slowly changing dimension, and give some example. I'll try to explain these different types with examples. So please be in the video for till the end. You will get different examples and I will make it clear. So stick to the video. So type 1. In this type 1, what is happening is, suppose there is a data and there is some change in that particular data. So what we are doing in this scenario, we are overwriting that data. Suppose in the OLTP or in the source system, there is some change in that data. So when we are getting that data in the data warehouse, we are just getting this data and overwriting the older data. We are not keeping any historical data. There is no history. There is no history. We are just getting the data and overwriting it. पुराने वाले होते हैं उसको निकाल दे रहे हैं, हम नया वाला ऊपर डाल दे रहे हैं. ठीक है? That is overwriting. So let's see example of what is SCD type 1. Say for example, let's consider employee table example. So we have an employee table. So say for example, you are an employee or we have an employee who is working in particular location, but after few years they are relocated to some other place, or we can say they are transferred to some other place. When they are transferred, this doesn't happen every month or every quarter or every half year. No, it happens after few years. That project is over, now we are transferring them to some other location. So let's take an example where we have employee ID, we have employee name, and then we have location. So let's, for example, employee ID 001 is Krishna. Currently he is working in Bangalore. BNG. So now Krishna got a transfer. Now he is moved to Delhi. Let's say for example, he is moved to Delhi. So what we will do? So this change is happening in source system. Say for example, this is happening in source system, and in this, let's take emp underscore dim. So this is a dimension table in data warehouse. So this table is in this dimension table is in data warehouse. Now in the source we have made the changes that Krishna has moved from Bangalore to Delhi. So now in this what will happen is, the same data which is there in the dimension table, we will overwrite the data. We will overwrite the data with Delhi. We will overwrite the data. So this is an example where we are using type 1 SCD. So let's see what are the advantages and disadvantages of type 1. So type 1, this is the easiest way to handle the SCD problem, since we are not tracking any historical data. Okay, any historical data or any historical information, we are not tracking it. So what are we doing? Whatever the changes happened in the source system, we are directly making the same changes, overwriting the data in the data warehouse in the dimension table. So there is no historical data kept. So that way we don't need to track any data. So that way, that is the right advantage. And what is the advantage is the same thing, is all the history is lost. You're not able to track the historical data. So the moment, so basically now if I move from Bangalore to Delhi and then I move from Delhi to say for example Bhubaneswar. So when I'm moving from Bangalore to Delhi, Delhi to Bhubaneswar, so there is no history that I stayed in Delhi or I worked in Delhi. So there is no history that I worked in Bangalore. So that historical data is lost. One way it is good, that we are not tracking, koi farak nahi pad raha. And the other way it is not disadvantage to us, saying that we don't have the historical data. We cannot track whether Krishna worked in Bangalore, Krishna worked in Delhi or not. So when to use type 1? When it is not necessary for the data warehouse to keep track of the historical changes of the data. So when we don't need to track any changes, then what do? We use type 1 SCD. So what is type 2? So type 2 SCD, in this type a new record is added to the table to represent the new information. Therefore, both the original and the new record will be present. So I hope most of you understand, but still I will try to explain again. So basically what we are doing is, we have the current data, which is the exact current data, and then when this data is getting changed in the source system, and after the ETL process, when the data is getting loaded, we don't update the same record. We add a new record with the same information. Okay, but whatever the change is, whichever attribute or whichever column there is a change, that data we are updating to the latest data, to the original data that we are getting from the OLTP or from the source system. I'll give an example that will make things clear. The new record gets its own primary key. So if you say employee table, for example, so employee ID, say for example Krishna 001, as we saw the example, Krishna 001 employee ID. Again, after the update, after there is an update or there is a change in the source system, when that data is coming, so when that data is coming, again 001, which is an employee ID of Krishna, getting updated in the table. So 001, which is a primary key, employee ID 001, there are two values. And if there is any more changes, again there will be a third record for 001. So what is that primary key? So what is surrogate key? Please pause the video and comment what do you understand by surrogate key, and then in the example I'll try to explain you what is surrogate key. Please pause the video and please comment what is surrogate key, and if you don't know, please continue watching. And after you understand what is surrogate key, please comment that I learned surrogate key, which is something new that I learned. Maybe the whole SCD concept itself will be new for you, but still you can put some comments so that at least the Google algorithm understands that this is a valuable video, and this should reach to higher masses where they are able to learn something with examples. So in the source system, taking an example, same we can take employee ID, employee name and location where he's working. So these 2-3 information which are taking in the source system. In the source system we have 001 employee ID, which is Krishna, and the location, which is initially BNG. Okay, the source system, this is employee ID, this is employee name, this is location. Okay, and this is the target system. We have employee name and location, and we'll add some more columns when I see the requirement so that I don't confuse you. So now initially we have employee ID 001, which is Krishna, and his location is Bangalore. Okay, now what I do is Krishna is shifted to, say for example, Delhi. Okay, so Krishna is shifted to Delhi. Now when Krishna is shifted to Delhi, so here in type 2 what will happen is, now when this change comes, okay, so I will get one more record, which is 001 Krishna. Now it is Delhi. The same data we are adding. The same data we are adding to this dimension table. We can say emp underscore dimension table. Okay, so this table we are adding this information. But how do you differentiate that these two are different data? So there are some other attributes which will be added to the table. So one is surrogate key. So this surrogate key is mostly a number. The employee ID or any primary key in the source table can be anything. Okay, it can be characters, or it can be variable characters, varchar, or it can be numbers, or anything it can be. But in the data warehouse, the surrogate key is only a number. Okay, so those who know, very good. Those who commented, thank you. And those who didn't know, I'll try to make this clear. The surrogate key helps in the data warehouse when we are using slowly changing dimension. Surrogate key helps to maintain the uniqueness of the data, and surrogate key is mostly a numeric value. So, and which is given by the computer itself, which is auto incremental. The moment a new record comes, it will give a new value, new surrogate key to each record that comes, whether the record is a unique record or whether is a record which is getting only updated. But the surrogate key will keep increasing, and this will give a unique value which is numeric. So I can say, for example, 0102, and then now what happens is, and some more columns like active. There will be an active column. So active column, it can be in 0 and 1s also, like binary values, where 1 is saying that this is a current location, and 0 or maybe a negative value which says this is the previous location, or this record is not the current location. So if I say, for example, BNG is 0, why? Because this is not the current record, and Delhi is the current one, which becomes 1. And then I can also mention the date, okay, the ETL job run date. So here, so this may be this record was in 01 January 1 21, okay, and then this data, so this data maybe it changed in the year 2022, 01 22. It can be any number, it can be any date. So I'm just taking for instance, so after 1 year when I move to Delhi, so this data comes, and the active value goes to 1 for Delhi, but for Bangalore it changes to 0. Now say for example, again I move to, in the 2023 I move to, say for example, Bhubaneswar, BBS I'm taking. So now surrogate key here 03, but the employee ID will be same 001, same person Krishna. Now he moved to where? BBS, that is Bhubaneswar. Now this active record will change to 1, this will change to 0, and this date will change to whatever date I move. So I'm just taking for instance as 2023. Okay, so these are the dates where the data is getting updated, or there can be duration date also. From this date to this date is where Krishna stayed in Bangalore. From this date to this to where Krishna stayed in Delhi. All this information can also be added. Okay, according to the business requirement, according to how the business want to keep the information, they are allowed to do that. They can add more columns also to make it more precise or to make it more clear. So up to them, but this is how basically SCD type 2 will work. Okay, whenever there is any changes, so a new record is added with the same value and the updated value. Okay, I hope this is type 2 is very clear, because type 2 is the most toughest to understand, and this is the most toughest to get any example for. ठीक है, तो जो चेंज होंगे वो चेंज क्या होंगे, वो चेंज न्यू रिकॉर्ड में के रूप में आ जाएंगे. और ये जो एक्टिव कॉलम है, जो एक्टिव कॉलम है, ये जो एक्टिव कॉलम है ना, ये एक्टिव कॉलम ही आपको बताएंगे कि ये करंट रिकॉर्ड कौन सा है. ठीक है, ये बाइनरी वैल्यू हो सकती है, या फिर एच कर देंगे तो हिस्टोरिकल हो जाएगा, ए हो जाएगा एक्टिव, समथिंग लाइक दैट. So when they can use characters, they can use numbers. So mostly they keep it binary to keep the data size less. So here 0 and 1, so binary value true or false, something like that. Or they can have historical H for historical data. So this BNG and Delhi, that will have H value, whereas BBS will have A value, which is active. So something like that they can have, but this you will understand when the business requirement is given. So if you go through the BRD document about the SCD, that will be explained in the project where they have the BRD. So if you go through that, you will understand. So let's go to the type 3. So before type 3, let's understand the advantages and disadvantages of type 2. So, and as we see, as a type 1 and type 2, in type 2 we can accurately keep track of all the historical information. So you saw each time the person is getting migrated, or the person is getting transferred to a different location, there is a new record which is giving the actual value, the active record, which the data is active. So we are able to track the historical, where all he stayed, where all he has worked, for what all duration, all that can be tracked. So that is the advantages of type 2. The disadvantages is this will cause the size of the table to increase rapidly. So because we are storing the same information and some more additional attributes also, additional columns are also there. So this when the number of changes are high, so this will increase the capacity or increase the size of the table, which may lead to the storage and performance constraint, storage and performance of the whole database. So that we need to consider while using type 2. And when to use type 2? So type 2 can be used when it is necessary for the data warehouse to track the historical changes. We want to track all the historical changes, we use type 2. So let's go to type 3. So in the type 3, we add a new attribute just to store the changes, the change value. Whatever the value is changed, we just store that. For the purpose of storing that changed value, we have a separate attribute or a separate column where we store that. So why do we add a separate column? One column which will give you us the previous data or the historical data, and the new attribute or the new column to show the changes or the current value. So that is where we have two attributes, one for having the old information and the other for having the current information. So there can be a column which may indicate when the current value becomes active. So initially when we saw there is an active column where we speak about historical H or active or 0 or 1. So similarly in this SCD type 3 also we can have something which is showing us whether the current value is active or not. So there can be, yes, we can have a column like this or we cannot have a column like this. So up to the business whether they want to have or not. So in the source system, same example I'll take. Employee ID, employee name and location. Let's take the same example, 001 Krishna, initial location Bangalore. In the target, employee underscore Tim is the table name, employee ID, employee name, location. I'll add extra column when the correct time comes, or else you'll get confused. So initially 001 employee Krishna, working in Bangalore. Now Krishna is working in Bangalore. Now Krishna gets transferred to Delhi. Okay. Now in the source system we'll just erase Bangalore and put Delhi. In the target we want to have some part of the historical information. So now Krishna has moved to a different location, Delhi. So here in the source system we can see it is showing Delhi, but here what do we do is, here we can say historical location and active location. The names can be anything. I'm just trying to give some name where you can relate to. So now here I'll keep Delhi. Okay. Now he moves to, say for example, Bhubaneswar. Now what I'll do is I'll come here, change this Delhi to BBS. So the problem with this type 3 is we don't have the full history. We do have what? We have part of the history. We don't have full history. We cannot track all the historical data, but most of the data we have. Okay, so there can be one more column where can be a date column where we keep the update date. So when the first time when Krishna moves to Delhi, I update the date. So for example 01/01/2022. In the year 2022 he moved to Delhi. So now when he is moving to Bhubaneswar, I'll come here, change it to BBS 01/01/23, whatever the date is. Okay. So I'll change this. So there can be more columns also to indicate the duration also, start date, end date, something like that it can be. So I'm just giving a simple example for you to relate and understand. So there can be two different scenarios for historical data and active data, but I don't want to confuse you, so I'll not give that example for now. Maybe some other day when I'm explaining SCD example, that time I'll try to give that example because it will confuse you even more. So for now, let's see, the historical data is the start, the first time he started working in Bangalore, and then whenever the changes happened, active location keeps changing. So if you have any doubts with respect to example, or if you have any other doubts, please put it in the comment section. I'll try my best to answer that, and if not, I'll make a separate video to answer that. So type 3, this does not increase the size of the table. This allows us to keep some part of the history. As I mentioned, a part of the historical data we can track. So, and the size of the data, size of the table will not increase because we're not storing all the information again as we did in the type 2. So we're not storing all the information again, we're only updating whatever the new location is. So the disadvantage again is we are not keeping all the historical data. So all the changes that happened with time we will lose out, and if there are multiple changes, So for example, when I moved from Delhi when I moved from Bangalore to Delhi to Bhubaneswar, so the Delhi record or the Delhi information is lost because there are multiple changes. When there are more than one changes or more than 2-3 changes, we lose out the all the history. So that's a disadvantage in type 3. So when do we use type 3? We use type 3 when we don't want to track all the historical data, all the historical changes, but we want to track some part of the historical changes that has happened. So that is where we use type 3. And we are sure that these changes will be in a finite number, will not be ever changing, or the changes will not be very frequent where we miss out a lot of historical data. Okay, so that is where we will use type 3. So to recap, there are 3 types, which is type 1, 2 and 3. So type 1, so I'll just give one word where you can directly relate to type 1, 2 and 3. So type 1 is basically overwrite. Okay, and type 2 is add new record. Add new record or add the updated record. It will add a separate record. And type 3 is partial history. That is one extra attribute or one extra column. Okay. So this is type 1, 2 and 3. If you have any questions, please put it in the comment section. I'll try to answer your questions and clear your doubts. And again, I'll reiterate, if you want to meet me and if you want to have a one-on-one conversation about my journey, so please book it. The link is in the description box. And if not, you can go to the channel's about page and then you can book a slot. Go to the link and then book a slot with me according to my availability. You can see the calendar and book it there. Please follow me on LinkedIn and Instagram. I am actively participating in LinkedIn and Instagram. If you have anything to speak, you can message me there. And if you like the video, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Please share this video to all those friends who are in the data industry and they want to learn about data warehouse concepts and database testing, ETL testing, data warehouse testing, BI testing. So I'll be getting more such videos where insightful videos where you will learn a lot about data warehouse, ETL, BI, manual testing and so many other things. Mostly it will be related to testing and about IT and how IT works. So please subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon. See you next week on Thursday at 7 p.m. Bye bye.